Previously in Part 6, Lin impresses Mr. Yang with his skills, claiming to have learned them on his own. Gao complains of bruises from trying to fight Lin. Lin visits Lingyan Group to find Yuan, who is out signing a contract. A female worker brings investment papers, but it's unclear what they entail for Lin's future plans. The head of Lingyan Group showed Lin a contract for an investment in the livestream platform. He told her that he would not read the content and she could handle it herself, then left to attend a meeting with the livestream platform workers. The lady asked him to take off his mask, but he refused, saying that it was his personal style that must not be easily broken. She told him that she wouldn't force him and handed him the contract. When he saw that they were expecting him to do more than 100 hours of livestream per month, he told them that it was impossible for him to be in front of a camera every day. The lady told him to give it serious thought because they had a contract fee of 50 million. He asked them if he looked like a person who was short of a little amount. Then the man asked Lin why he was an anchor if he didn't need the money. He told the lady that the investment talk was over, and they didn't need to waste any more time talking to him. Lin told them not to think about the investment because it wasn't happening. The man replied that the investment negotiations were over, and a company like Lingyun wouldn't easily backtrack. Then Mrs. Tian called the lady and said that they wanted to invest. Lin told them that if one of them offered to leave, then maybe there might still be a possibility of this project becoming a reality. The man asked him if he thought he was the boss of Lingyun, and if he was, then he would quit his job. Lin texted Mrs. Tian to continue with the investment. She called the lady and informed her. Lin exited the building and the lady ran after him, telling him that she would change the contract and that if he had time, he could go to a live event to help farmers, and the head anchor would be there. Lin told her to contact him when the contract was ready. Liang Roxu called Lin while he was in his car to tell him that the medical institute they launched would be officially launched tomorrow, and if he had time, he should go. The next day, she met Roxu outside a building and gave him a file. He read it and found out that he had been made the Secretary General of the medical associations. Roxu told him it was a way to thank him for the things he had done for China. When they reached the elevator, she told him to go up by himself, and he would meet Zhao Wen upstairs as she had something to do. When he got off the elevator, he saw Xin and Liu Chuhan. He walked up to her and asked for her BX. She was surprised to see him and asked him if he had time for dinner. The other young doctors were glaring at him, wondering where he had come from. Then, Fu Chuang asked Chuhan if she was leaving and who she was with. She replied that he was her former colleague. He reminded her of what they were discussing, but she told him that there was no need as she would talk to Lin. Choyang glared at Lin and asked him where he was working, and Lin told him what he did. Lin replied that he quit his job as an anchor. Choyang told Chuan that Lin was just an anchor and would not understand high-level issues when they discussed them with him. She defended him, saying that Lin was a good cardiac surgeon and had the ability to discuss issues above her without any problem. Choyang told her that he talked to Mr. Miller about the issue. Lin asked Choyang if he thought he was at the same level as Mr. Miller. Choyang furiously yelled that Mr. Miller was a major figure in the industry. Mr. Miller walked towards them and explained that Lin was the research and development leader of their center, and his attainment in the field was higher than he could imagine. The other doctors in Choyang were shocked. Then, Lin and Chuan exited the room, and Mr. Miller ran to them. Lin gave him a recipe for a blood clot remedy so that they could work on it. Mr. Miller's partner asked to talk to Lin in private. Lin sent Chuan to wait in his office, and Mr. Bei told Lin that the Va family was setting up a world-class laboratory. Lin asked if they wanted to hire him. Mr. Bei told him that they could give him enough power and money. Lin told him to go away as he was not interested. Then he went to his office, and Chuan went and kissed Lin, saying she missed him. While still at the office, Xiao Yu called and asked when the time of their flight was for tomorrow. He replied that it was a private plane, and they could leave whenever they wanted to. At the airport, Xiao Yu saw Long Shuai and Bai Binju live streaming, and she pushed Lin, saying she didn't want to see them. Bai Binju saw her and told Shuai. Shuai called the masked guy, telling them that the flight was in the opposite direction, and asked if they were hiding from him. Lin replied that just because they were going to the same place didn't mean they had to take the same plane. He replied that there was only one flight to Yowan. Then he gasped as he saw them walking towards the private plane. Bingyu told him that they should go on the plane first. Zhang Meng appeared and told him that maybe Lin wanted to create a rich kid personality, so he spent a lot of money on the plane. On the plane, Kinhan welcomed them and introduced Xiaoyu as his friend, coming with him to Libstream. They arrived at Yoan Island Airport, and Kinhan told his friends that they should find a club to go to at night. Lin told them to go because they had an event at the terminal. He was looking at his ship when Xiaoyu told him that it was beautiful. He told her that it was his and he would take her up soon. Then she suggested that they do a live stream. He noticed that his popularity was 200,000, so she told him that Shuai went live on the plane. Then she told him that they should look inside the ship. Shuai walked towards them, saying that the starship was the second largest ship and it didn't accept anyone. Lin asked him if he wanted to board the ship, and he replied that he couldn't get up there and neither could he. Lin told him that if he couldn't get up there, it didn't mean that he couldn't either. Lin walked towards the guard, removed his mask, and the guard recognized him and let him through. He told the guard not to let them in, so he looked at his phone and told his followers that if the next live streamers sent red packets, he would send out double. On the ship, Xiaoyu told Lin that his popularity was about to exceed 5 million, and she asked if he wanted to release a wave of red packets. Then she saw what Shuai said. She told Lin, and he told her to see how much he sent because he couldn't lose. She saw and told him. He told her that they would send twice as much as Shuai sent. Then Shuai called and asked why he was trying to get on his nerves. Lin replied that he was competing. Shuai told him that there was no point in competing, so he should just save face. Lin told Xiaoyu to send 1 million. When she did, people started leaving Shuai's room. He got frustrated and told them not to leave, saying that money was nothing. He told Binju to send him some money so that he could send out 2 million red packets. She did, and he announced to the live streamers that he was about to send 2 million and told Lin to prepare 4 million. Lin told Xiaoyu to send the 4 million packets. When Shuai saw that he couldn't compete with Lin, he told them that he couldn't handle it, so he would seek the boss. Meanwhile, Lin ended his live stream and went to do business. The guy told Lin that the Va family gave them a 10 million booth for free and said they appreciated their company and hoped for the possibility of cooperation in the future. Lin told him to send them 30 million, and if they contacted him, he should call him. As he was getting off the ship, Yan called him and told him that she wanted him to participate in the wilderness survival program. He agreed. Bingju and Shuai met their boss at the bar, and he told them about Lin and that they needed him to step in and solve the problem. Bingyu told them that the rich women in his room must have given him the money, and Shuai told them about the contract he had signed with the platform. Zinchin suggested that they ask him out to talk. Lin arrived at the club and barged into their VIP lounge, telling them to say what they wanted to say. They told him that they wanted to talk about the live stream. Zinchin told him that he would offer a higher price if he went to his company. Lin replied that he didn't feel the need to cooperate, and then he left their lounge. Shuai told the boss to use the hard way. As they were about to exit the club, Kai Liu stopped him, saying he should have a drink. Zinchin and Shuai were watching as the people in the bar chanted for Lin to drink. Lin drank the whole bottle of wine and told Kai Liu that it was his turn. Liu replied that they were just fooling him and that Lin wasn't worthy to drink with them. Lin smashed the bottle on Liu's head and took a bottle of wine. He forced Kai Liu to drink all of it, and Liu started throwing up. Lin and Xiaoyu left. She put Lin in the passenger seat, saying she would drive. While in the car, the system lady congratulated him for opening a new career as a farmer. The next day, they went to the airport to interview a movie star, Zhang Wengxi. When Mr. Go told her about it, she told them to make an appointment with her agent, and that she only does interviews with regular media. Lin apologized to everyone and told them that he would take them to meet other stars. Then Mrs. Wang asked if one of them was Zhang Yuan. She told him that she just had dinner with his parents and invited them to dinner. Then she called Wengxi to introduce her to her friends. Mrs. Wang introduced Wengxi as the young actress she recently cast in her film, and she would send them tickets when the time came so they could go to the show. Wengxi smiled and waved at them. Mr. Gao reminded her of what she just did and told Mrs. Wang that his friend wanted to buy a plane, so they would leave. Mrs. Wang told Wengxi to go back and tell her agent that she wouldn't cast her in the next play, and they should find somebody else. Meanwhile, Lin met Yan, and she told him that her boyfriend was in charge of the aircraft display, so she came over to see him. Lin replied that he came to purchase a plane, so he would just buy it from her boyfriend. They went to check out the plane, and as they were coming out of the plane, Yan's boyfriend Zhen Kyo walked up to them. She told him that her friend wanted to buy a jet, so he should find someone to introduce it. Kiao replied that he didn't have time for anchors to livestream and increase their traffic, and he asked her why she was friends with them. She told him that Mr. Lin was richer than he thought and told him that if he didn't want to do it, then she would let them go. Kiao went to Lin and told him that he would get someone to introduce them. He told the sales lady Zhang Ni, and she asked him if he was sure it was them. Zhang Nana went to the lounge and introduced herself. Then she read a few details of the plan. Xiaoyu asked if salespeople have that kind of attitude when they see ordinary people. Go asked if she was done with the introduction. She replied that she was done, and it was all she had been assigned, and if they were not satisfied, they could complain or go to another company. Then she went to tell Qiao that she had done her job. As Lin and his friends started leaving, Yan followed them out, and Qiao asked her what she was doing. She told him that she was leaving because he was looking down on others, even though each one of them was richer than him. He replied that they were just internet beggars. Then Yan said they should break up. Go walked up to Qiao, telling him that it was his first time hearing someone call him a beggar. He grabbed a vase and smashed it on Qiao and told him to be polite to Lin in the future. They walked out. Nina was helping Qiao with his wounds when she told him to give them a taste of their own medicine. Once they were outside, Lin apologized to Yan for the breakup. She told him that they were already having some problems, and if not for this incident, they would have broken up anyway. They went to the club, and Lin's friends convinced him to go talk to Yan. While he was telling her to get drunk and drown her sorrows, Mr. Hongtou, the head of the aerospace division, arrived and called Qin Han. Qin introduced him to Lin, saying he was the one who wanted to purchase the plane. He gave Lin the information on their aircraft, and Lin signed the contract. Mr. Hongtou left to get a copy of the contract. Then, Gao told Lin that there was a familiar face. Lin went to look and saw Zhao Mo and his friends. Sun Si went towards Lin and tapped his shoulder, telling him that he had made them lose too much money. Qin Han told Sun not to touch Lin like that because he had a bad temper. Sun asked Han if he was threatening him, and then Lin grabbed Sun's hand, making him lose balance and hit his head face first on the table. Lin took a fork and pointed it at Sun's eye. He told Lin that if he touches him, his family will not let him go. Lin replied that they are a bunch of wimps, and if something happens to them, they look for their parents. Zhao Mo asked him who he was talking about while walking towards him. Lin kicked him in the gut. Then, Chang told Lin to release Sun Si, and that at the maritime reception, there would be a ring match, and they would both fight. Lin released him and told them that he would be with them to the end. As they were walking out of the club, Gao told Lin that Gu Chang was really great at things. He grew up playing sports, and his physical fitness is superb. Lin replied that he would keep that in mind. Then the daughter of the Va family called Lin to meet up, and she told him her room number. He arrived at the Hotel the Dana, and she introduced herself to Lin and gave him tea. Then she told him that the Va family had business in their area, so they wanted to start a cooperation with him. Lin replied that he remembered rejecting them. She went close to him and seductively touched his hand, saying she could satisfy him. Lin asked her what she meant. Then she rose from her seat and took off her clothes, telling him that she could give him a different feeling. Lin rose from his seat, telling her that she had a beautiful body, but she wasn't attractive to him, and his wife was much prettier than her. After Lin left, she called her grandpa and told him that it didn't go well. Lin reached his hotel room, and then Cheetah got off the elevator with his friend. They went to Yan's room to ask for Lin's room number, but they didn't find her. Some time later, she entered her room, and they asked where Lin was. She asked him what he wanted with him, and he replied that Lin hit him, so he wouldn't let it go easily. She told him that it was his friend who hit him, and he got furious that she was defending him. He told her that he really misjudged her. She told him that she was doing it for his own good. His friend Xianghuai told her that they were not leaving until she told them where Lin was. She told them she would take them there. They reached Lin's room, and they all entered. Lin asked why there were so many people in his room in the middle of the night. Yan explained that they came to seek revenge. Xianghui ordered the men to teach Lin a lesson. One guy lunged at him, and Lin slapped him. He landed on the floor groaning, and the other guys ran off, telling them that the job was too scary. Xianghui apologized to Lin, saying it was their fault, and they should forget about it. Lin kicked Xiang and Qiao out of his room and turned to Yan, saying he didn't know what attracted her to him. She walked towards him and touched his chest, saying there are few men who can compete with him. Lin replied that he'd like to hear her say that, and they started kissing. The next day at noon, Lin woke up, and his friends walked into his room asking him why he was waking up so late. Then they saw blood on the floor and couch. Han went to check the bed and told them that the bed was also available. Xiaoyu commented that Brother Lin was so powerful. Lin yelled at them, saying it was enough. They both went to a restaurant to eat. Xiaoyu asked Lin why the girls were looking at her with ambitious looks. Gao replied that they were jealous of her because she was sitting with the four of them. Lin asked Han about the cruise ship dinner, and Han told him the details. As they were at the beach broadcasting, Lin's live broadcast got blocked. She called Ms. Lee and asked why his live room was blocked. Ms. Lee told him she would call back when she knows what's going on. Xiaoyu asked if it was because she took pictures of something she shouldn't have. Lin called a person telling him that his broadcast was blocked, and he thinks it's him. The person told him to meet at Yunshu Hotel. He went to the person's room, and the person gave Lin a contract to sign, saying that they could offer him a 20 million fee. Then Lin asked him who had reported him on the live stream. He told the guy to call the person. The guy told him to sign the contract, and he would help him solve the problem. Lin flipped the table in anger, and the guy told him that since he didn't want to discuss it, he couldn't do anything about it. Then Shuet walked in with his boss, Wang Xinkin. Wang told Lin that he should not have trouble with money. The other guy told Lin that if he signed the contract, their previous grudges would be settled. Lin told them that he just wanted to know who had set him up. Then he beat them and called someone to connect his live stream. At Phoenix Terminal, he met Chinon with Nina. He told Lin that if he didn't have money, he was nothing. He was about to make a call when Mr. Hongtao came running towards them, calling Mr. Lin. Mr. Hongtao gave Lin the contract, and Kyo asked him if he also came to buy a plane. He told her that Mr. Lin had ordered it, and Han was the one who helped them get in touch. Lin signed and told him that he would call the finance department to make the payment. Then, he turned to Kyo and Nina and asked them if they still thought that he was just an anchor. He told the workers of his ship not to allow them on his ship. Kyo told Lin that he couldn't bully him like that. Lin replied that it was his ship, so he could decide who gets on it. Once he got on the ship, his friends told him that Zhao Mo and the others were having a party at the stern of the boat. They planned to compare the popularity of both sides and see which side had more girls. Lin told them that he had an idea. Then he called Mr. Hongtao and told him he needed a favor. Zhao Mo and his friends were mocking Lin because their party was boring, and Lin looked at his watch, telling them that there was still time. Zhao Mo and his friends left after telling Lin that they were welcome to come to their side. Mr. Go asked Lin why they were still standing there and that they should hurry up and do something. Lin replied that it was almost time to sail and the big mystery gift he prepared should be arriving soon. Zhao Mo and his friends saw helicopters carrying sports cars. Lin grabbed the microphone and announced that there would be a raffle later for the 3 sports cars, and now they should review the small gifts in advance. The people went to Lin's side, and then Zhao Mo told Gu Chang that at the match, he should not give him a chance. Lin's phone rang, and Yan told him that Longxing had received an investment from the Va family. He replied that Tan's side would handle it. Then Xiaoyu told Lin that their popularity had exceeded 9.6 million. Vidana walked in, and when Zhao Mo asked her for a dance, she refused and asked Lin to dance instead. Lin told her that it didn't matter what she said, he wouldn't change his mind. Vidana told Lin that she suddenly felt tired and that they should stop dancing, but Lin grabbed her tightly and continued dancing. When he went to sit down, Zhao Mo told Lin that he was good at even hooking up with the Va family, and that they would see what would happen at the auction. Lin told him that he wasn't interested in anything at the auction, and that he could have it all. Zhao Mo told him that he was too weak-minded to shoot with them. Lin laughed and told him that the ship they were on was his. Gu Cheng told Lin that the auction was not fun, so they should just go down to the arena. The loser would get kicked off the ship. The boxing match began, and Lin punched Cheng in the face, causing him to stagger to the side of the ring. After balancing himself, Cheng told Lin that he had some strength, but he would show him what he was capable of. He lunged at Lin and swung a punch, but Lin dodged it and kicked him in the stomach. Cheng wondered how Lin could move so fast. Then he punched him in the cheek, knocking Cheng out. Lin won the match and told some people to arrange for them to leave. The next morning, she called, saying that the recruits at the factory had left, and he told Lin to wait at the office. He borrowed Han's jet and went to Shanghai. He asked them if they had found out the name of the factory where the recruits went, and Yuan replied that it was New Technology in Science and Technology Electronics. He went to Seiko Industrial Park with Yuan, and Lin asked Yuan why the people at the entrance kept looking their way. She told him that their names were Zhang Yanshu and Liu Quanbo, and they jumped to work there after the company was acquired. He asked if they went on their own or if they were headhunted. Then they went to talk to them, and Yuan told them that they could be hired back. They replied that they wouldn't go back because their pay was too high there. Then Lin told her that they should go to the electronics store and see if they have any available personnel. She saw Wang Fu. She told Wang that they intended to rehire him with a higher salary, but he told them to stop fooling people and leave. Yuan told Lin that the situation was not very optimistic, so Lin told her to send the numbers of the two directors. He called Mr. Wang, but he told him that he was abroad for business. Sun told him that his daughter-in-law had just given birth, so he was home with her to recuperate. Lin then told Yuan to get Han to help her get a construction team because he wanted to build a road. He got in his car and drove to Rox's house. She asked him what he wanted from her. Lin replied that the road in Seiko Park was not too flat, so he wanted to renovate it, and she should help him apply for the project. The renovation began and Mr. Sun and Wang walked into Lin's office and hit Yuan on their way in. Lin told them not to go close to him because he didn't know them, and he told Yuan to get security. When they arrived, he ordered them to take Sun and Wang to the police station for subjecting his staff to physical and mental torture. The directors told Lin to stop so they could talk properly. Yuan was on the floor crying, and she told them to pay for it. Lin told them that it's 500,000 per person, and if they didn't pay, they would see each other in court. They paid and sat down so they could discuss the matter and come up with a solution. The matter was not resolved, and the directors left. Yuan told him that she's going back to work, but Lin reminded her of the money, saying he's the best actor, and he should get his own share. She opened the buttons of her shirt and called Yan, telling her that her boss is trying to molest her. He told her that he could take the money and get lost. He called host Yan, saying he needs a favor from her. Meanwhile, Sun and Wang were discussing how Lin treated them. Then Mr. Wang called Zhang. After the call, they decided to settle the matter their old way. So they went to the construction site and found Sun Dong. They told him to get out of their way, but he ignored them. Wang told them that they would regret it and called for all his people to come. Wang told them that he would give them one last chance to fill in the excavated road quickly, but Dong replied that he didn't agree. Wang kicked him, and Yan yelled at him to stop while running towards them with her camera guy. The workers all lay on the ground and pretended to be hurt. Fan asked Wang to give a perfect explanation for openly committing violence against charity road repairs, but Mr. Sun replied that it was just a small friction. Then she asked one of the victims what happened, and he explained that they were hit while legally there for construction. Mr. Wang ordered one of them to smash the camera, and Yan told him that it was against the law. Then the Zhang administration arrived and took Wang and Sun away. Lin walked into their room, and they started apologizing. Lin told them that since they owned a cell phone screen and accessories production company, they would supply for free so that he would let go of the issue. They agreed, and he asked them who was behind it. They told him that it was Zhang Haiyong. He took Haiyong's number and walked out of the building. He told Yuan to tell Wang to arrange the recruitment of the factory. Then she told him that Mrs. Tia wanted to talk to him. Tia explained that the VA family sent them money, but said no to discussing the details of the investment. He told her to invest the money in Tong Electronics. Then he went home and told Yan that she was losing weight. He had to cook for her to make her fat. She replied that he had the potential of a homemaker. Then she asked him to stay home with the kids while she made money to support them. Lin agreed and told her that they should have a baby, otherwise he would have no child to raise. The next morning, Lin made breakfast for Qin Yan. She told him that her mom wanted him to come over for dinner. Lin agreed and they planned to go that night. Then Xiao Yu called and asked if Lin had any live broadcasts she could help him warm up. He told her that he had a public service broadcast to help farmers. He went to the construction site and asked Dong how he was feeling after being beaten up. Dong replied that it was no big deal. Meanwhile, Wang Ran was talking to the factory workers, and one of them told his friends that they should go to the next factory where they would be treated better. Lin asked the recruits if any of them had any idea of returning, but one of the recruits replied that no matter how much money they offered, he would not go back. Lin told them that he would not force them to return. Wang Ran asked Lin what they should do now, and he told her that the matter would not take long to come to fruition. He then told her to give him a tour of the factory. Meanwhile, Sun and Wang arrived at the factory, and Wang Dong told them that he had taken care of everything. Mr. Sun slapped Dong and asked who had told them to do that. Then he fired all the recruits from Tong Electronics. They went back to Tong Electronics, and Zhang Yanshan introduced himself, saying that they were ready to support their factory to continue production. Lin reminded them of what they had said about the factory having no development, and Dong replied that it was a misunderstanding. Lin called security to escort the leaders out and allow the rest to enter the factory for an interview. Then, someone called him to talk about the public welfare live broadcast and informed him that they had arranged a celebrity. Lin suggested finding some really poor places and helping them sell things. If they couldn't agree, she could change anchors. Lin went to buy a gift for Yan and bought it. He arrived at Yan's house, and her father welcomed him. At the dinner table, Yan's mom asked them when they were going to get married, and Yan replied that they were still building their careers. Her mom told her that they had a stable relationship, so they naturally had to think about these things. Yan rose from her seat, saying they should get going. Lin started pretending to feel drunk, and Yan asked how he could get drunk by drinking soda. He replied that maybe there was alcohol in the soda. Yan's mom told them that they could stay the night. They entered their room and slept. The next day, he went to the Ling Yun group and called a meeting. He told the workers that he was doing a live stream for an event to support farmers' public welfare live. His idea was to find a few poor areas, help them sell their products, make publicity, and solve the problem of their future sales. Chi suggested a village that makes a living by growing peaches. Lin told him to send the information and contact their director about the live stream. After the meeting, he went to Zhang Xiaoyu's house and showed her the list of things he had picked. She told him that they would not have high sales. Lin told her that if they had the talent for processing, they would not suffer from poverty. She replied that since he was rich, he could help find a few factories that could deep process and make canned fruits, and they would make much better sales. They went to the village and asked one of the farmers the price of the peaches. He replied. Then Lin called Wu Zhuoyo, telling him that they had a live broadcast to help farmers, and now they wanted to process the peaches and make them into canned fruits. Then a lady banged on his car window, telling him that she heard he wanted to buy yellow peaches. He asked for the price. She took them to her storage room and told them to feel free to inspect. She gave Yuan a peach to try. Lin asked why she was selling hers at a lower price. She told him that her peaches had been picked for some time, and if she didn't sell them, they would have to fight poverty. Some of the farmers came to her storage asking Liu Lao why she was selling hers cheap. The guy next to Lao told the farmers that her peaches would be rotten in the next 10 days, so she couldn't afford to waste them. The farmer told her that she still couldn't sell it to them. Lin told them that he could help with the intention of taking goods. He didn't want to exploit them. He told them a price, and they agreed. He told them to report their supply quantity to Xiaoyu. They did. They went back to the Lingyan group and started calculating the price of their juice. They found out that the seller's commerce uses aged frozen fruits, but their price is cheaper than theirs. They decided to focus on the quality of their product. They went to Shuangtang Township and met Xu Zhengkai. Xiaoyu started broadcasting, and Shi Jiangjin went to the site to see the two anchors who stole his business. As they were busy, Jiang asked them who told them to collect things there. Lin replied that he was the one who received the stud. One of the farmers told Lin that they were the previous people to collect yellow peaches, but at a low price. They didn't agree. The farmer tried to explain things to Jiang, but he kicked him. Lin slapped Jiang and kicked him in the chin. Jiang's people went to hit Lin, but he punched one of them in the face and the rest left. Then he told Xiaoyu that they should continue the acquisition. He received a call telling him that they had a problem with the equipment. He arrived at the factory, and Wang Ran explained the problem with the machines. Lin asked who had discovered the problems, and Wang Ran pointed at Hu. Mr. Hu Zhilin introduced himself as the newly hired factory manager. Mr. Hu explained the problems. Then Lin told them to continue looking for other problems, and he called Wang Ran to his office. She told him to scold her because it was her fault, but Lin told her that it wasn't her fault and that someone had been messing with the machine. They started kissing, and suddenly someone knocked on the office door. She hid under the desk, and Lin told them to enter. Mr. Hu gave Lin a file of information on the devices and left. She got out of the desk, and they continued making out, asking who was screwing with the machine. Lin replied that there were two pawns, masterminds behind the scenes, Zhang Haiyong of Jado. Then he went to a bar and met with Qiu Jingyu. She called Lin, and he replied that he screwed up, but she still wanted to talk to him. She told him that he was the investor and shareholder of her company, so she didn't have to mess with her own partner. She asked him who he wanted to screw now. Lin replied that it was Tito. As he was leaving, Yuan called him, and he told her to write a public relations article in the name of Longzhen. The next morning, Aunt Shen called him and talked to him about the war he was about to start with Taito. She told him to call her if he couldn't get it right. Then he went to Lingyan and asked if Taito had responded yet. One of the workers replied that not many people believed it. He told her not to worry about the situation and asked what the people in the industry community thought. She replied that they looked at it as a joke. His phone rang, and Haiyang asked him why he was accusing them of doing something wrong. Lin told her that justice is never absent because the truth will always come out. Then he asked Director Han if she had prepared the articles. She showed it to him, and he told her to go and write an article reflecting on the segments. Then he left the office. Meanwhile, Ruoxin and her mom were discussing the war that Lin had started. Then she saw another article saying that Tong Electronics was a consortium investment. Her mom replied that his move was wonderful, and he was able to return unharmed. Roxu asked how Lin Yi's head had grown. Wachula went to his sister's room and asked if she had seen the news on the internet, that Lin Yi had fooled them. But Dana told her to calm down because they had nothing to lose. He replied that the family had given notice that they should act quickly. At Kushan Pavilion, Aunt Shen called Lin to inform him that Haidong had been fired and the stock price was fluctuating erratically, but the Hua family had not moved. The next day at Tong Electronics, Rand told Lin that Mr. Hu had resigned, and she thought he was responsible for the destruction of the machines. Lin told her to contact the police. Then an unknown number called Lin, introducing himself as Zhang Zhenhou. He said he would like to talk to him about withdrawing the false statements on the internet. Lin told him to let his father handle it. He should not get involved. In his office at Lingyan Group, one of his workers walked in to inform him that the things needed for the broadcast had been set, and the price was 20% cheaper. As she was leaving the office, she bumped into Mrs. Tian. Tian told Lin that tomorrow was when Longson was going to the public small bell ringing ceremony and asked if he wanted to attend. Lin told her he didn't like to show his face, so she should ask Boss Shen. Then he went to a coffee shop and met with Tony, an agent of Li Chensing. He told Lin that his trafficking was no match for their Chensing. Lin replied that he came to his studio, and he still wanted to be in charge. Tony rose from his seat, saying his problem was the character, so there was no need to cooperate. He left. Yuan called Lin, saying something happened after the launch, and there were a lot of negative posts about Longson. It was affecting their stock. At Lingyan Group, Qin Yan was furious that people could believe the fake news. Lin explained to him that there's a mastermind behind it all, and people with grudges against him are spreading it. He warned them not to read the posts and said he was going to visit an old man at Go's house, asking Yan to come with him. When they arrived, they found the elevator to the 18th floor wasn't working. Lin told Han to try the 17th floor and they'd walk up, but they discovered the stairwell was locked. Nurse Taxi Oliu appeared and refused to let them enter, despite Yan's attempts to call the family. Suddenly, Director Liu recognized Lin and ran towards them. Lin asked who he was, and he replied that he was Liu Tou, the director of the orthopedic department. But what did he want with Lin, and why was the 18th floor off limits? Stay tuned for the next part of this manhwa. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you wish to see another episode.